Harold Bluetooth, circa 985/986. Harold Bluetooth, the king who carved runestones to boast that he won all Denmark and Norway and made the Danes Christian, died in a way no ruler wants, slowly, painfully, and betrayed. In his final years, nobles rebelled, and the revolt was likely led by his own son, Swine Forkbeard. Harald took wounds in battle and fled toward the Viking stronghold at Jomsborg to recover. Imagine the room, a smoky hall, the old king feverish, stitched cuts turning black at the edges, every breath a rasp. Outside, messengers arrive with worse news. Towns swearing for swine, warriors switching sides, priests uncertain who to bless. Sources disagree on the exact final blow. Some say assassins finished him inside the fortress. Others that infection from battle wounds consumed him over days. The pain wasn't just physical. It was the ache of power slipping away, friends avoiding his eyes, and the knowledge that the heir he once raised now owned the war bands. There was no triumphant pyre, no sky-wide funeral. Only a father bleeding out while his son's faction took the realm. For a king who remade a people, the end came like a quiet knife. Olaf II, Saint Olaf of Norway, 1030. Olaf returned from exile determined to rule, and to lock Christian law into Norway with iron. His reforms cut the old families and jarls to the bone. They rallied against him, and Olaf marched back to win the crown by force. The armies met at Stiklestad. The field turned to a grinding press. Shields splintered, mail ripped, men slipping on churned mud. Olaf pushed through the crush under a bright banner, taking a spear in the side, then a sword across the ribs, then the heavy bite of an axe. He dropped where the ground stank of iron. The tragedy is layered. In life, he lost, killed by countrymen who saw him as a threat to their world. In death, the story inverted. Reports of miracles spread, and within a year he was canonized. The men who hacked him down found they had forged a saint whose shrine would draw pilgrims and whose memory would outlast every jarl who cheered his fall. A painful end on the field became a crown of thorns that outlived politics. Magnus Barefoot of Norway, 1103. Magnus lived fast and fought faster. Raids across the Irish Sea, scarlet cloaks whipping in salt wind, a reputation for daring that bordered on reckless. In Ulster, the land itself turned executioner. Enemies drew him off the firm roads into wet ground, broken by hedges and ditches. Horses sank, formation shattered. Then the spears came, short, fast, relentless. Magnus's guard closed around him, but they were bogged, packed, and easy to reach. There's a particular cruelty in this death. Not the clean clash on a ship's deck, but the slow panic of being pinned by mud while common spears punch through royal mail. Magnus went down under a rain of thrusts, eyes full of gray sky, the weight of his gear dragging him sideways into the muck. For a king famous for momentum, the end was paralysis, trapped, swarmed, and finished by terrain his scouts should have read. Eric Bloodaxe, 954. Eric, sometime King of Norway and later king at York, was a walking warning label. His rule was iron. His enemies multiplied. In the thin air of Stainmore Pass, his world closed. An ambush, set by shifting allies and old rivals, hit him where the wind cuts and visibility fails. Arrows bit through the seams of mail, blades hacked at close range. The guard staggered back against rock and fog. Bloodaxe's death was not an instant stroke. It was a beating, a shredding, armor pried open like a chest, reputation peeled away with it. The politics were as painful as the wounds. Men he had fed and paid found it convenient to look away. He died far from any hall, crown already theoretical, reputation sealed by the way his body was left on cold stones. Monks, not scalds, would write the last line. The Norse chapter in Northumbria closed with a king cut down like a bandit. Swine, blot Swain of Sweden, circa 1080s. A pagan backlash put Swain on the throne and brought back outlawed sacrifices. Then Ing the Elder returned with a lesson in fire. Night wrapped a hall where Swain was feasting. The doors were barred, torches hammered into the thatch. Burning is the most democratic of deaths. King and thrall breathe the same smoke. Inside, skins blistered, breath turned to knives, beams shrieked and fell. Swain, who had made public blood rights policy, became the offering himself. Whether the details are polished by saga or not, the core is iron. He died choking, burning, trapped, hearing the frame of his kingship collapse one beam at a time. When the roof slammed down, so did the movement he embodied. Ingjald, ill ruler of Sweden, 7th century. Ingjald solved politics with hospitality and arson. He invited rival nobles to a grand two-hall feast. Once the cups were deep and the benches full, his men slammed the doors and threw fire. Dozens died clawing at barred oak, while the king watched their shadows writhe on painted beams. Years later, cornered by growing enemies and sensing there would be no mercy for the ill ruler, he repeated his own method on himself. He sealed a hall, entered it with his mistress, and set it alight. Self-immolation leaves no clean legend. It is a death in stages, heat, smoke, collapse, chosen by a man who preferred burning to kneeling. Ingjald taught the North a method. In the end, it swallowed him whole. Domalde of Sweden, prehistoric, mythic, famine year after year, no rain, moldy grain, thin cattle, children with eyes too large for their faces. The priests cast lots at Uppsala, and the blame climbed to the ladder, first poor men, then richer, then nobles, until finally it rested on the king. Domalde walked to the sacred grove knowing exactly what his death meant. In the oldest calculus, the king's life is the weather. If the sky won't change, you kill the sky. Whether he is pure myth or a memory with antlers, the pain here is ritualized and public, bound, offered, watched by a starving people who believed that the blood of the ruler could buy a harvest. There is no duel, no glory, no defiance, only a body traded for rain. Ragnar Lodbrok, 9th century. Ragnar, the composite king of half a dozen lifetimes, pushed into Northumbria with too few ships and was taken by King Ella. The sentence in saga logic is deliberate torment, a pit of serpents. He was lowered in, mail and skin turning to pincushion, venom climbing the veins like fire. Ragnar answered with prophecy, rasping that his little pigs would grunt when they heard how the old boar died. The cruelty did not end in the pit. The consequences stood up and marched. The great heathen army, men named Björn Ironside, Ivar the Boneless, Sigurd Snake in the Eye, torched the map of England for years. A death engineered for maximum pain also maximized fallout. The scream echoed into invasion. Now, what did you think of these brutal endings? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, share it with a friend, and hit subscribe for more dark chapters from history.